Have you ever wondered how to stack shipping containers on top of each other, converting them into a home? Well, right behind me here is a 20-foot container, and that 20-foot container is actually gonna be going on top of this 40-foot container right here. In this video, I'm gonna break down to you how we plan to do it. So the first thing you wanna consider when stacking containers is the structural side of things. So you wanna make sure that when you stack your container, it's gonna be properly supported. Now, containers are designed to rest on the knuckles. When a container is resting knuckle to knuckle on top of each other, or corner caster to corner caster, there's the most support there. Now, what we're looking to do here is a little bit different. Because we're gonna have one of the knuckles on the knuckle, and the other one is gonna be literally resting just right in the middle of this container, it's not really designed for that, at least not inherently. So there's some things that we have to do to make sure that it's gonna be able to properly support it. So one thing we recommend doing is adding additional structural support where that other knuckle is gonna be landing. Now, if you're also planning out like a pier foundation, you're gonna wanna consider having your pier located directly under that as well. It's gonna transfer all the weight from that top knuckle and that top container right down this beam that you'd have welded in and into that pier. That's really the most effective way to do it. Now, you also need to consider the fact that the knuckles, and we'll go up there and look at it, they typically are a little bit taller. So we're gonna have to add a little metal plate here where we're gonna be able to make sure that upper container sits perfectly level. So let's do this. We'll head up there and we'll talk through some of those details. All right, so we're up here on top of the container. So right where I'm standing right now is where that 20-foot container is gonna be resting. Now, the rear knuckles on that container are gonna rest on these knuckles right here. And what we're gonna end up doing is we're gonna do a 6-inch weld along this edge and along this edge to attach that knuckle. Once you do that, that's gonna be a solid structural weld that's gonna help hold it in place. But we're gonna walk to this end. I'm gonna show you what we're gonna do for the front two knuckles. So for the front knuckle, it's gonna land right here in this space. What we're gonna be doing is getting a little metal spacer. It'll probably be about, maybe close to about 1 inch or so. It's gonna be whatever that height difference from the knuckle to the container is. So that piece is gonna go right here. That is gonna be 2 inches by about, or I'm sorry, it'll be about 3 inches by 6 inches. And what we're gonna end up doing is similar to how we had 12 inches of continuous welding on that corner post, we'll be able to weld around that and secure the knuckle to this end as well. Now, one of the interesting things to keep in mind is that 20-foot containers are actually usually 19 feet, 10 inches. So when you're doing your math and figuring out where this middle spacer needs to be, I recommend just go ahead and get a tape measure. Make sure you pull the measurement on your 20-foot container so that exactly where you have that is where that is gonna line up with your container. So after we get the 20-foot container, which is this one right here, stacked on top of the 40, the next thing is trying to figure out how to integrate the utilities from one unit to the other. Now in this instance, we have our 20-foot container here. We're gonna discuss how we connect the water, power, and sewage, and we'll discuss HVAC as well between the two units. So right here we have our water line, it's our cold water line and our hot water line. Exits out the bottom of this 20-foot container. It's gonna connect to the top of that 40-foot container, which I'll show you. So all of the cold water actually comes from the first unit and up into the second unit. Same with all of the hot water. So there's only one water heater in this setup, and it's located in the 40-foot container. It's fed up through the top of the 40-footer. It jumps to this hot water line and then feeds this shower and vanity inside of here. Now you can see right here as well, we have our sewage line. So that's gonna exit out the back. It'll then run down the back side of that 40-foot container and tie into the main sewage line on that 40-foot container. Lastly is the electrical. So the main breaker panel is on the 40-footer. It's a 200 amp panel, and this is gonna be a jumper box. So from this box, there'll be a conduit that comes out the bottom of it that's gonna run down to the main breaker panel to get its main power supply. Now, lastly, on the topic of HVAC, on the bottom unit, we have a main condenser with a dual fan system on the interior. On the top, we just have a completely separated system. So it's got its single condenser with a single fan inside, and it's powered through this junction box right here and ties into the main breaker box. But let's look at the 40-footer. Just so you can kind of see how this will connect to that. So right here is the 40-foot container. This is the back side. That 20-foot backside will just be right here in this location. So you can see how this water line is just gonna jump and connect this hot water line, these will both get cut and they'll just connect directly to the upper units. Same thing with this power box. That junction box aligns with this main breaker panel. So that conduit will just run down. It's gonna connect into this main panel where the breakers for the 20-foot unit are actually living right in here. And you can see this has a completely separate condenser situation. This is that dual split system. So 2 fans on the inside, 1 main condenser on the rear. Now for that sewage line, it's gonna be running right down the exterior here. It's gonna run underneath the container and tie into the main 3-inch drain line for the unit. Now there is one interesting detail I wanna show you on the 20-foot units, and it has to do with how we get enough pitch under the toilet and the shower to have it drain out of the 20-foot container within the container itself. Usually with containers, you're doing a stem wall foundation or something along those lines, maybe a pier, and your plumbing will usually basically extend past the actual bottom of your container. Now, because these are sitting right on top of each other, we don't have that luxury with this 20-footer. So we had to basically raise the plumbing up into the interior of the unit. And we can step inside one right now and I'll show you how we did it. So right now I'm in the upper 20-foot bathroom. So I mentioned to you how the plumbing more or less needs to be recessed up into the container a little bit. One of the key ways to do that is with this right here, a toilevator. Cool name, right? And what it's gonna do is basically raise your toilet an additional 3 inches. So you can see it right here is the toilevator, and this toilevator goes right underneath this toilet. So it's not done at the moment, but what it does is it gains an extra 3 inches for your drain line to now exit out the bottom of the container. Without this system, typically that drain line would end up being past the bottom of the container. When we go to stack these units, that would hit the top of the container, it would crack, it'd be a mess. So by having something like this, it's gonna raise your toilet 3 inches, get your drain line an extra 3 inches up towards the bottom of the container and give you clearance. Now, you aren't gonna have any issue with vanity related items. Those are smaller drain lines. The P-traps are up in the cabinet, so no issues there. But there is some things to show you on the shower. So when it comes to the shower, you're typically gonna use a traditional P-trap. That usually takes about 8 inches of space from the drain location. So if this shower is not raised at all and it's just sitting directly on your container floor, your drain line is gonna be actually sticking past the bottom of your container by 2 to 3 inches. So one of the things we do is actually raise the shower. By raising the shower, you're now raising that P-trap, those drain lines, and it gives you plenty of space underneath to make all of your connections for your vanity, toilet, and shower and exit out the container without coming past the bottom of the container. Now they do make some products like inline drains and things that are supposed to be more slim and low profile for your shower, but we just prefer to go the traditional route. It's tried and true, and we know that it's not gonna need to get replaced with time. Well, hope you enjoyed this video. If you enjoyed this conversation about the nitty-gritty of how to build a container home, you're gonna definitely wanna check out our free online training. It's 60 minutes long, showing you how we do what we do. In it, we go over some of our biggest lessons in container construction, things I've never revealed before, tactics that can help you save months on your timeline and thousands on your build. So you can check that out in the description below. It's completely free. And I look forward to seeing you in the next video.